Thank you so much for the opportunity. And I'm standing here wearing like 3 different hats. And the Ministerial Commissioner for Defense Innovation, I call it the bureaucratic hat. The other one, I'm going to mention a little bit about NATO and NATO innovation. I'm also the vice chair for the board of directors in Diana. And the CEO for Wiki, which in Hungarian it's Védelmi Innovációs Kutatóintézet. This is the Defense Innovation Institute that was created for the sole purpose of actually facilitating innovation ecosystem in the defense sector in Hungary. With that, I think that we are at a crossroads. The Hungarian government and I must say that it's fantastic that this is happening. Has realized around in 2010 that the geopolitical situation is changing very rapidly, and a decision was made in 2015 for probably the biggest modernization effort to be launched. It was called Zrínyi 2026 for those of you who are researching this, but it was only called Zrínyi 2026 because we planned 10 years ahead. So right now we still have the same program, it's now, of course, for the next 10 years. But many things have changed since then. But 3 pillars are already sort of showing the benefits of the forward thinking of the government. Number 1 is what I call modernization. So these are the large ticket items, the Airbus helicopters, the Leopard tanks, the Lynx armored fighting vehicle, which is definitely the future, and many others that the Hungarian Defense Force is procuring. And this procurement process is providing real high-tech equipment to the forces, replacing the old Russian equipment that we have had in the past, let's say 40 to 50 years. The second one is the defense industry. I could talk about each and every of these topics for the next half hour or so, but because of the shortage of time, I will just circle back to the third one. But the second one is defense industry. Our defense industry was sort of non-existent a couple of years ago. Right now, even large companies like Airbus, Rheinmetall, and others are finding their new home in Hungary, which is very promising. And I think that's very important as well, that the credible deterrent provided by the Hungarian Defense Forces is also backed up by a defense industry build-up, which is going to be then again a long-term process. So I'm talking about the next 30 to 40 years, and we need to think ahead in those terms. And the third one, which is my favorite topic, is defense innovation, because this is the sort of the unseen catalyst that's really connecting the tissue between the research organizations, between the young talented individuals, many of them are in this room, and also those developers, and by developers now I mean the small and medium enterprises, and the end users, the military people. And we need to rethink the playbook. Why? I like this sort of picture because it helped me to understand the nature of the problem that we are facing. And many of us think it's technological. I think it's not. It's a human problem. And I learned this from Astro Teller. So if you don't know him, he's the grandchild of Edward Teller, great Hungarian scientist, and with great genes and everything. He's leading Google X now. So he's working for Google, and he's doing he's called the captain of moonshots there. And he said that about 100 years ago, I mean, we humans, we... That doesn't work. Yeah, it doesn't work. Never mind. So if you are here, then about 100 years ago, it took about 15 years for us humans to adapt to a new technology. We have improved somewhat, but in a linear way. So if you are here right now, in the time scale, it takes about 10 years. With technology, it took about 25 years to be scaled and spread around. But with digitization, this is increasing rapidly. Right now, the disruption cycle is around 3 to 5 years, and it's halving. So the next one is going to be 2 to 3 years, then 1 year, then half a year, and you see. So in the next 7 years, you will see as much change in technology as in the past 20 years. It's very hard to understand, you know, the exponential nature, because we humans are not hardwired to think that way, but this is what's coming. And this is very disturbing, because what Astro says is that we are already behind the curve. So we are here and technology is there, and if we are not able to close this gap, then it's going to be a problem. And not to mention, you know, speaking about organizations, which is I call transformation, because it's a bunch of people need to adapt to the new technologies and the surrounding world. So this is out there, and what Astro says is we are not able to radically, and I mean radically, reimagine the way we learn individually and in organizations, then that gap is just going to increase. So very happy that I can present a few thoughts in here, because I think that everyone in this room is sort of working towards sort of closing that gap. So I wish you good luck on that work. The other problem is that we are sort of this comes from David Snowden, not that Snowden actually. He's a professor at Oxford University. And he says, you know, there are different ways to look at systems. You know, there is the ordered one, which is not existent right now. There is, which we call VUCA systems. So who have heard about VUCA in this room? Yeah, read my second book, second chapter. But this is volatility, uncertainty, complexity, ambiguity. This is coming into the business sphere as well. Actually, 27 years ago in the military, in a US school, they tried to describe the security policy situation after the collapse of the Soviet Union. So they came up with this term, but it's widely used now to explain, you know, all the complexity of today. And this is not just technology, this is geopolitics and everything else that is around us. I mean, we have a war in the neighborhood. Balkan is far from being secure, you know, the migration is out there. There are so many challenges that we need to face today and find solutions. So if I want to lay it out here, you know, that's the acronym, and these words mean different things. These are not the same. We will think, you know, that complexity and ambiguity might be the same, but they're not. And what we can do with these is I think that yes, we need foresight. We need to think ahead, but in shorter terms. So 30 years ahead, I don't really believe, you know, that we can figure out the future. Influence, yes, we need those networks. Simplicity, yeah, especially when so many things are happening, you know, having a clear vision for finding the way ahead is absolutely necessary for organizations. And speed, agility, especially in terms of bringing these new technologies and adapting them. So one of the things that we are dealing within NATO right now is how we can bring the new technologies to the hands of the warfighters. And you can see that in Ukraine and other places as well, where normally you have 4 to 5 months to actually use the technology, because before it becomes like unusable. Because there is already a system that they negate the effects. So it's that fast, and in this world we need to find a way ahead. And of course, you know, within NATO there are a lot of documents, and this thinking goes back to the NATO summit, and there are a lot of documents. The new one that came out, and I can only suggest you to read, is the strategic foresight analysis, because in that document you can find a lot of useful tips and tricks. NATO have collected, you know, all the nations and run 50 plus workshops and so on, and the essence of that knowledge can be found in that document. So it's really useful, but they also are writing what they call FFAO, the applications of these. So how the defense sector can actually use the knowledge that they have realized, you know, where the world is headed. These are all publicly available documents, and there are some strategies that NATO is releasing. Those are not widely available on quantum, on AI, and biotechnology, and all these other things which they call emerging disruptive technologies. And I think that's another thing, you know, that if there is a disruption in AI every 6 minutes, so how do you actually, you know, plan ahead in an NDPP format, which is a 4-year planning for NATO, if, you know, you have no idea, you know, where that technology is going to end up in 4 years' time, and these are questions that we need to answer, and all the sort of research base that's contributing in actually finding answers to these. That is invaluable. So what we do The national approach in Hungary that we have is I already told you, we are trying to build resilience as a nation. This is much more than the defense forces. I mean, the whole of nation needs to understand how they can sort of contribute to this effort. The Hungarian defense forces obviously can contribute to deterrence by denial, but the defense industry and defense innovation goes hand in hand. And the innovation is focusing more on the long tail, the smaller companies, and the research institutions, while the defense industry is integrating these technologies and providing the scalability to the system. Obviously, at a national level, that brings up a lot of opportunities, and that's why the Defense Innovation Institute has been created as well. As an auxiliary research companion to the Ministry of Defense, sort of outside of the bureaucratic system, being the connecting tissue for the bureaucratic strategy that the MOD is doing in Hungary. Where are we right now? There is no sort of credible presentation without showing a few numbers. So we have improved somewhat. So we are amongst the moderate innovators now. But our ambition is to step ahead and become members of an elite club. And we have a Ministry for Culture and Innovation, which are driving the national effort. But the defense innovation piece is within the Ministry of Defense in Hungary, which are in synergy with of course, with the national strategy. So actually jumping ahead, several places, it's going to take a lot of effort, but certainly the ambition is there in the near future. Also in the European Union's projects and in NATO, we're stepping ahead, but I'm going to share a few more detailed slides about that. But these are the changes within the Ministry of Defense that we have sort of achieved in the past year or so. And as you see at the ministerial structure, they have created the commissioner and other entities within the bureaucracy, which are dealing with setting up the priorities, creating the focus areas, and actually dreaming up the vision for this system. Also, the Hungarian Defense Forces is very much involved in this because the rapid adoption part, the validation by the end users needs to be there. They have the expertise to actually say whether if that technology is soldier-proof, and how we can sort of speed this process up is the gazillion-dollar question that we all trying to sort of answer together. And Vicky in there, I'm just going to throw out female names today because it's the National Day anyway. So Vicky is the Védelmi Innovációs Kutatóintézet is the connecting tissue towards the ecosystem, which is already out there. The science parks are there, the research institutes are there, but we are looking at the dual use nature of these things. So how we bring in these technologies and actually find a use for defense sector. Sometimes these companies, they have no idea that the technology that they are developing can be useful for defense purposes. And by that, I don't necessarily mean that this has to be lethal weapons. This can be, logistics, healthcare, all kinds of things. In space, I can only name, just a dozen of things which are dual use in nature. You can't really have a clear dividing line, especially in research. So applied research is becoming more and more important for NATO, for the European Union. If you have just read the articles recently, the defense sector is becoming very fast a very important focus area, with more and more resources backed up, and obviously the European Defence Fund is being one of those significant ones. But there are other ways as well that we can pool and share. So how do we follow up on this one from a Hungarian perspective? Obviously, Hungary's strategy is to create those networks. As it was laid out in the book of Balázs Orbán as well. So if you haven't read it, it's available in English now. It brilliantly explains the sort of the strategic thinking and the networked way that we are trying to approach other nations and the region itself. And of course, the strategic dilemmas that Hungary has. And the geostrategic location of Hungary, I think it's also very important because we can sort of capitalize on this one. With the Defense Innovation Institute, we are really trying to create a hub. And we are reaching out to other nations. These are some of the nations that we are mainly focusing on and have relationships with built already. But we are definitely reaching out to others as well. And the main focus for 2024 right now, and that's why my deputy, Balázs, is sitting here, because he is the main mastermind behind that effort, is creating a regional sort of hub-like entity with the neighboring countries, with the V4 countries, and with the Western Balkans, certain countries, and through research entities. We can start to build those relationships. So this is very important for us. Of course, we have global aspirations as well. So some countries we have targeted already, and I think those are very important partners. And there are some that are not on this map, which are very relevant from a defense industry point of view. But from a defense innovation point of view, these are the ones that we are already in negotiations with and trying to find those meaningful relationships. So where is the value statement and how we envisage to do that? I think that's very important as well. Of course, there is nothing new in here, but the devil is in the details. So I think that we are definitely trying to provide opportunities for those smaller entities. And by small, I mean in NATO's definition, an SME is less than 100 people. So it's not really the startups, but the startups with something, a prototype maybe, that is already sort of available and can be tested. If we are talking about NATO, there are plenty of opportunities. The Defense Innovation Institute is also an accelerator for Diana, the Defense Innovation Accelerator for the North Atlantic. That's NATO's wide defense innovation network with more than a dozen accelerators and almost 180 test centers. So we cannot underestimate the power when we have an alliance sort of joining forces and providing opportunities. And the smaller entities have answered our call. The first Diana challenges, the first 3 went out last October, and 1,300 companies have applied. We have 44 winners in the pipeline right now, so the competition is really high. But having that much attention on these things and shows us that there is real willingness in the countries throughout the alliance to actually go into the dual use space and work alongside with the defense sector. And these are all startups. I mean, 94% of the applicants fulfilled that criteria. So we are able to reach the target group and the target audience. Wiki, or as we call DICE in English, is doing exactly the same. So we are bringing in the sort of the military expertise and finding the use cases why it's going to be useful for the defense sector. But at the same time, we are sort of building up opportunities for the defense industry. So when these forces sort of are aligned, I think that's when the whole pipeline will actually work. Of course, Hungary is a small country, so NATO has 9 focus areas. If you have read the Emerging Disruptive Technologies Roadmap, you can definitely figure it out there. It's a 300-page document. It's pretty much detailed, how NATO imagines in doing research and development in those technologies that are developed, in a very agile and rapid manner. In Hungary, these are the 3 areas that we are mainly focusing on. One is we call the digital soldier, and by that I don't just mean the equipment of the soldier, but also the mental capacity. I think this is a huge challenge today, that if what I'm saying is true. And if we will see as much technological change and disruption in the next 7 years as we have seen in the past 20, then, you know, totally different fighting systems will enter with all the autonomous systems and everything else. And actually, we are behind the curve. I know that there is a lot of legal research going on in here. I mean, regulations are just a nightmare because technology is developed so much faster. So how we think about that, how we think about responsible AI, for example, that will definitely help the decision making for the soldiers on the battlefield. But just looking at like Palantir releasing the new version of their software and all these other things which are already being tested and used on the battlefield, I think a lot of work and research work needs to be done to support these developments. Autonomous systems, I don't need to spend time on this. I mean, on the ground, underground, in the air, it's everywhere. There are hundreds of thousands of drones in Ukraine right now being used and tested. And this kind of power cannot be underestimated. And I can assure you that many of these systems, there are no regulation whatsoever. It's a war, and soldiers are trying to make the most out of it. And there are a lot of lessons that we are learning from this. How we can channel those lessons into developing systems in a more structured way, I think that's a huge question that still needs to be answered. And the third one is disruptive technology. Space is definitely an area in Hungary which is about to be stepping up. Cyber systems as well, and all the big data supported by artificial intelligence, I think are areas that we already have projects or are actually setting up networks with actually institutions who are doing applied research and small companies who have already prototypes. Thank you so much.